In May 1945, as the shattered remnants of the Third Reich collapsed under the overwhelming weight of the Allied advance, thousands of German soldiers and high-ranking officers surrendered to the United States Third Army, commanded by the legendary and volatile General George S. Patton. Among these captives were men who had spent years enforcing a brutal regime across Europe, yet upon their capture, they arrogantly demanded luxury accommodations and strict adherence to military protocols. They expected to be treated with the utmost prestige, completely blind to the hypocrisy of their requests after the unimaginable devastation they had left behind. General Patton, a man driven by a fierce sense of warrior justice and ancient honor, faced a profound moral dilemma when dealing with these captured forces. This video will explore the intense psychological clash between a relentless American commander and his defeated enemies, proving how true leadership responds to arrogance in the shadow of war. If you want to support historical truth and never miss an untold story like this, please take a moment to subscribe to the channel, like this video, share it with someone who needs to hear this story, and leave a comment below about what you find most interesting. The German officers, particularly those from the elite units and the infamous SS, brought a sense of aristocratic entitlement into the prisoner of war camps, complaining about everything from food quality to their sleeping quarters. General Patton was already deeply hardened by the horrors of the battlefield, but his perspective on the enemy shifted permanently after his troops liberated the Ohrdruf concentration camp, the first Nazi horror site uncovered by American forces. The sight of thousands of emaciated bodies stacked like firewood and the overwhelming stench of industrial mass murder deeply traumatized Patton, filling him with an intense, burning righteous anger against the entire German war machine. When reports reached his desk that captured German officers were complaining about minor discomforts in their camps, Patton's patience evaporated instantly into a cloud of pure disdain. He viewed their demands not as legitimate grievances under international law, but as a disgusting display of unrepentant arrogance from men who had actively tolerated or participated in absolute evil. To Patton, the Geneva Convention was a sacred contract of honor meant for honorable soldiers, not a shield to protect the comfort of individuals who had discarded humanity. He refused to allow these prisoners to transition smoothly into a comfortable captivity while millions of victims lay in shallow graves across the continent. Instead of granting their requests for better treatment, Patton decided to launch a psychological campaign designed to completely break their remaining pride and force them to confront their collective guilt. The American commander ordered his officers to enforce the absolute bare minimum of camp regulations, ensuring that no German officer received any special privileges, extra rations, or soft treatment. When a group of high-ranking German generals formally protested their living conditions to Patton's staff, claiming that their status deserved better quarters, Patton's response was swift, brutal, and completely uncompromising. He commanded that these proud officers be stripped of their luxury items, forcing them to live under the exact same conditions as the lowest-ranking privates in the camps. Patton believed that before any discussion of comfort could occur, these men needed to understand the profound depth of their defeat and the moral bankruptcy of their fallen empire. He knew that physical punishment was forbidden, so he utilized the devastating psychological weight of shame, making it clear that they were no longer conquerors, but disgraced captives. The contrast between their previous arrogance and their current reality created an incredibly tense atmosphere inside the American stockades, where defiance slowly turned into bitter resentment. Patton's leadership decisions during this chaotic post-war period demonstrated his unique ability to wield authority as a weapon of moral retribution, refusing to let the enemy dictate terms. The physical environment of the detention facilities became a stark reflection of Patton's unyielding policy, as he ordered all swastikas, imperial eagles, and military decorations to be aggressively stripped from the prisoners' uniforms. This calculated move was designed to systematically dismantle their psychological identity, forcing the captured leadership to look at themselves not as heroic defenders of a fatherland, but as common criminals stripped of their systemic power. The German generals found themselves sitting on crude wooden benches, eating from basic tin mess kits, and staring at bare prison walls that offered absolutely no comfort to their bruised egos. Patton frequently checked the progress of these camps, ensuring his guards maintained an icy, professional distance that completely denied the prisoners the military camaraderie they desperately sought from their American counterparts. By isolating them from their symbols of power and treating them with cold indifference, he effectively neutralized their ability to organize internal resistance or maintain their illusion of racial superiority. The once proud elite of the Wehrmacht began to realize that their captor was a man who understood the psychology of total victory better than anyone else in the Allied High Command. As the weeks went on, the tension between the captors and the captives reached a boiling point, with many German soldiers attempting to use legal loopholes to demand better food rations. Patton countered this by ensuring that their rations were strictly tied to the available supplies of the devastated local population, refusing to feed prisoners better than the starving civilians. He argued that it would be a historical crime to provide luxury meals to defeated enemies while the innocent victims of their aggression were fighting for survival in the ruins. If you are captivated by this intense look into military history and leadership under pressure, please remember to subscribe to the channel right now, like the video, share it with someone who needs to hear this story, and leave a comment about something you didn't know before. This specific decision by Patton caused an uproar among some international observers, but the general stood firmly by his convictions, prioritizing justice over diplomatic comfort. He understood that the transition from total war to peace required a firm hand, and allowing the defeated enemy to feel superior would only sow the seeds for future conflict. His action sent a clear message through the ranks of the Third Army that the era of treating the Nazi leadership with gentlemanly leniency was officially over. This hardline stance extended directly to the surrounding communities, where Patton noticed that many local townspeople were still attempting to shield themselves from the reality of the regime's actions. He grew furious at the collective amnesia that seemed to sweep through the German towns, where mayors and prominent citizens claimed they had absolutely no knowledge of the nearby death camps. In response, Patton instituted a mandatory program where local leaders were forced to visit the stockades and see their own captured military heroes living in disgrace, shattering the myth of the unvanquished army. He wanted the civilian population to understand that the men who had promised them global dominance were now completely broken, relying entirely on American mercy for their daily survival. This strategy effectively broke the civilian support network that many captured officers hoped to utilize for smuggling luxury items or maintaining communication outside the fences. By cutting off their emotional connection to the local populace, Patton ensured that the prisoners felt completely abandoned by the very people they had claimed to protect. The climax of Patton's psychological strategy occurred when he ordered that local German civilians and captured soldiers be forced to march through the liberated concentration camps to witness the atrocities firsthand. He wanted them to look directly at the consequences of their loyalty to the regime, stripping away any possibility of plausible deniability or false innocence. When the prisoners returned to their barracks after seeing the horrors of Ohrdruf and Buchenwald, the atmosphere of entitlement completely vanished, replaced by a heavy, suffocating silence. Patton had successfully used the truth as a mirror, forcing the arrogant officers to see that their demands for better treatment were entirely grotesque in the context of their nation's crimes. He did not need to violate international laws to punish them. He simply allowed the horrific reality of their own actions to destroy their psychological defenses. This tactical use of moral confrontation solidified Patton's reputation as a commander who fought not just for territorial victory, but for a deep and lasting spiritual justice. Even as the war transitioned into the complexities of the Cold War, Patton's uncompromising stance against unrepentant enemies remained a defining chapter of his legendary military career. In the final days of his command over the region, Patton faced immense political pressure from bureaucrats in Washington who felt his methods were too harsh and risked creating long-term instability. Skeptics argued that a more diplomatic approach would help rebuild the fractured nation faster, but Patton countered that a disease cannot be cured by coddling the symptoms. He maintained that a complete cultural exorcism was necessary, and that exposing the absolute failure of the Nazi leadership was the only way to ensure democracy could ever take root in European soil. His journals from this period reveal a man deeply frustrated by political compromises, firmly believing that history would vindicate his decision to treat the unrepentant enemy with absolute iron discipline. This internal conflict between military justice and political expediency highlighted the tragic reality of post-war reconstruction, where the lines between right and wrong became increasingly blurred by global geopolitics. Yet, Patton never wavered, ensuring that as long as he held power, the perpetrators of war would never find comfort in his presence. As history judges the legacy of World War II, the confrontation between General Patton and the demanding German prisoners serves as a powerful reminder of the complexities of wartime justice. Patton proved that true strength lies in holding the line against arrogance, ensuring that those who caused immense suffering are never allowed to escape the moral weight of their decisions. If this historical account of leadership and justice moved you today, please take a moment to subscribe to the channel, like this video, share it with someone who needs to hear this story, and leave a comment about what you found most interesting or shocking about Patton's actions. The echoes of these intense psychological battles still resonate today, warning us of the dangers of complacency when facing those who refuse to take responsibility for their past. Patton's fierce determination ensured that the transition to peace was marked by a clear understanding of right and wrong, leaving an indelible mark on the history of modern warfare. By refusing to coddle the defeated aggressors, he helped establish a precedent where accountability was paramount, forever changing how victorious nations handle the complex aftermath of global conflict.